Hey, it happens every single year. There's always guys in the back half of the draft that end up putting up huge numbers, and last season was no different. Let's talk about a few guys whose ADP is rising here in 2019. What is going on, Headliner Nation? Welcome back. Next episode of the Fantasy Headliners, joined once again by Mr. Kyle Rich. Kyle's happy. Kyle's pointing at people and everything already. We just started. He's already throwing up not the bad finger, but he's throwing up fingers.
I'll throw up the deuces when we're done.
Perfect. Give the people something to look forward to, Kyle. Hey, today we're going to be talking about a few players who really outproduced their draft, their ADP last year. And it happens every single year. I mentioned it in the opening. There's always some guys that you get there at the end that really outproduce what you're expecting. 2018 was no different, but now we're going to have to start paying a little bit higher of a price here in 2019, and we're each going to cover three people. So we have six people total here that you can kind of expect to be a little bit more expensive on draft day. Kyle, how we doing?
We're doing well, very well. Excited to be talking a little bit of fantasy football right now. Looking forward to 2019. And this video, we're going to cover some of the names that aren't just going to pop up. So your Patrick Mahomes, your James Connors, Philip Lindsay's, like guys like that. We're not going to talk about them today because you know already. But we're going to talk about a few other guys. And I really want to dig into, is the price jump worth it? Do we really want to pay this price come draft day? Still a lot of things left to be said, but we'll see what happens as this offseason continues to play out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to make sure I throw out there also, we get the bulk of this information. We use a website, fantasyfootballcalculator.com, and there's going to be a link down in the description below. Make sure you check it out. It's a website full of stats and information. You can go back in history, get previous ADPs, all kinds of good information, and that's where we're going to be pulling the majority of the stuff that we're going to be talking about here today. So make sure you go check it out. Like I said, link down below in the description. Kyle, do you want to start off, or do you want me to go with the first one?
I'm going to let you go.
You feeling a little generous today?
I feel generous.
All right. Well, hey, I'm going to go ahead and kick it off. And the first person I'm going to be talking about is Tyler Boyd, who as of right now, and yes, we understand it's still early, it's February, his current ADP, because yes, there's people mock drafting out there already, right now is at 54. Last year, 2017, he went undrafted in a lot of leagues, and he had a great season. 76 catches, over 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns. He had a 70% catch rate. He was borderline a wide receiver one when AJ Green was playing. Now, yes, things somewhat changed at times when AJ went out and the bulk of the attention went towards Tyler Boyd. But now he gets a new coaching staff, Zach Taylor, over from the Los Angeles Rams, who is a Sean McVay disciple, and everybody just thinks that if you hire a disciple of Sean McVay, they're going to produce offense. Not that
they're going to the Super Bowl.
Exactly. Everybody is going to the Super Bowl this year. We may have 4 teams in the Super Bowl. But no, new coaching staff, finally get Marvin Lewis out of there. Tyler Boyd is somebody who's very intriguing to me because I still think that he has that high-end wide receiver 2 upside. And with an ADP in the 50s, somebody you could probably get 4th, 5th round possibly if you went heavy running back to start off with.
Yeah, and very good to begin the season. I mean, in the first few games there, after week 1, his next 3 games, 91, 132, 100, 2 touchdowns. A 15 target, 11 reception game. The very end of the season, though, except for a 97-yard outcome, 85 yards, it was just okay at the end of the year. So, can he continue it into 2019? If AJ Green is fully healthy, does it actually help or hurt Tyler Boyd? I think it helps him. I also think, does Joe Mixon get a little bit more involved in the passing game? So I still think there are some questions. But his current ADP is fantastic to me because in some mock drafts that I've done, I'm taking him anywhere between that 7 and 9 round range is my wide receiver 3. I'll take that all day.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing to throw in there is a reminder, too. Remember, Jeff Driscoll was the quarterback there at the end of the year. Yeah. Not that Andy Dalton is the second coming of Joe Montana or anything, but there was changes in that offense. A.J. Green going out, more defensive attention to Tyler Boyd, Jeff Driscoll. A lot of things in there, but I think, like you said, the upside is there, and the ADP is still great.
Absolutely. So my first player, we're going to talk about a running back now, went from being the running back 42 in drafts last season to currently standing at running back 20, and that is James White of the New England Patriots. And this is PPR ADP. So I'm pulling the ADP that he would be most beneficial in. I have questions about that. I don't know if I'm okay taking him in that range. I mean, terrific season last. I mean, more receptions than ever in his career high in receptions, career high in receiving yards, career high receiving touchdowns, career high rushes attempts, and yard. I mean, everything, career highs all across the board. But can he really duplicate that? I mean, Sony Michel missed a couple games at the beginning of the season before he finally came in, and then even at that point, he had to establish himself. Rex Burkhead was supposed to be a bigger part of the offense. He ended up missing quite a bit of time, and we saw him really jump in with a larger workload in the playoffs. The only thing James White is good for at this point is catches, because that's Sony Michel's team. As long as he's healthy, he's going to be the lead back. He's going to be the guy carrying the ball most often. So every time you play James White, it has to be PPR, and you have to hope this guy has anywhere between 5 and 7 receptions a game, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's just too crowded of a backfield. It's kind of something we talk about almost every offseason, it feels like, is there's so many options in the backfield for the New England Patriots that unless one of them gets hurt, kind of like we saw last year with Burkhead and then Michel missing some time, it's going to be hit and miss on a weekly basis outside, I think, of Sony Michel. He may be the safest option on a week-to-week basis just because I can see him getting, I won't say guaranteed because nothing's guaranteed, but close to that 15-touch range and the goal line opportunities. Like I said, though, with the Patriots, there's just so many options, and outside of Michel, it's hard to trust any of them.
Yeah.
All right, if you're going with a running back, I'm going to go with a running back because it's only fair that I copy what you do.
Do it.
All right. Well, last year, Tariq Cohen is who I'm going to be talking about. And last year, his ADP was 85th overall. So he's right around the 8th round pick or so. Now, after the year that he just had, which was a fringe running back one season in PPR leagues, his current ADP is 33rd overall. So he's jumped all the way up into the 3rd round in PPR leagues. And it's warranted. I mean, he had just under 1,200 yards. He had 1,200 total yards. Let me rephrase that. 8 touchdowns. He fits the Chicago offense perfectly. I mean, he is the ideal back for that Matt Nagy offense in there. He's going to get volume. He had 71 receptions last year in 2018. He averaged over 10 yards per reception. It's going to be something that they continue to use in that offense, and he's a safer PPR option, in my opinion. If you do go, a zero running back option in your draft, Tariq Cohen may be somebody who has some huge value there in the 3rd, 4th round, depending on what it's like once the season comes around. And he could be somebody who's a weekly start for you, and that's something that you really don't have to worry about a whole lot.
Are you concerned at all? His counterpart, a guy that we're going to talk about in a different video that will be coming out soon, Jordan Howard, because towards the end of the season, he did have 2 100-yard performances in weeks 13 and 16. And then he still also got 10 attempts in their playoff game against Philadelphia when Tariq Cohen barely even saw any touches. So are we worried at all that Jordan Howard will continue to sneak in there? Will Cohen's workload go up? Will we see it maybe bounce back a little bit? I think it's a very volatile position in Chicago now.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those things where is it ideal? Do I want him to be my running back one? Personally, no. But I'm always a running back early in the drafts. Am I worried about Jordan Howard? I mean, last season, you just mentioned it there. The end of the season was when he started to be somewhat productive. And I mentioned a lot last year that, in my opinion, Jordan Howard is more productive end of season because that's in the cold winter months when they have to rely on the run a lot more. It doesn't quite fit the style. There's just bad weather games there. And they're forced to run the ball 20, 30 times a game. And that's not going to ever be Tariq Cohen's, forte. Not to say forte because I'm talking about the Bears, which is kind of like a weird innuendo. But, it's going to be something where I think Tariq Cohen is going to start off every year and kind of be the guy. He's going to be the guy, getting him started on offense, and he may not be productive 16 weeks. But if you go out there and you go wide receiver, round 1 and 2 in the draft, Tariq Cohen is my running back 1, 2 in that situation. I'm not quite as scared. I'm not exactly excited about it, but I'm a running back guy. Zero RB is a big thing for a lot of people. May not be for me, but for a lot of people, they like it, and he's somebody in PPR leagues that has value.
Yes, all the running back love right here in this area. These, again, I forget which side you're on. One of those sides. Anyway, so let's stay at the position and let's stay in the division. Let's talk about Aaron Jones. So ADP was probably pushed down a little bit last season due to his suspension. He did miss a little bit of time to start the year. But even with that being said, guys like Julian Edelman, who are also going to miss the season, weren't having their ADP pushed down too much. So Aaron Jones missed the first 2 games of the season, came back in week 3. He did end up missing time at the end of the season with an injury as well. But last year, he was the running back 41, according to his ADP. And then this year, running back 15, according to his preseason ADP right now, or offseason ADP, we'll call it, not preseason. So is it warranted? Do we think he is a running back 15? Do we think the potential is there? Do we think Jamal Williams is going to take away from him? And do we think his new coaching staff will use him appropriately, unlike they did when LaFleur was in Tennessee and couldn't figure out how to use Deion Lewis and Derrick Henry? Lots of questions there. So what do we think happens with Aaron Jones?
I was super excited when Mike McCarthy left because I was like, all right, perfect. Aaron Jones, it's his job. He'll be good going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And then the LaFleur signing kind of was like, crap, here we go again, because we think that we know what is going to happen. And hopefully he learned his lesson by the performance that Derrick Henry put up second half of the season, and that he knows that Aaron Jones is the type of back in that offense that needs the ball. He needs to get touches. He's been overly productive. Aaron Rodgers loves Aaron Jones. Maybe it's because they're both named Aaron. I don't know. But it's something that was successful for Green Bay in the past, and I have to think that the new coaching staff coming in recognizes that, acknowledges it, and gives Aaron Jones the ball right out of the gate. Jamal Williams is an okay, maybe bye-week fill-in or something if you need someone, but I'm hoping that Green Bay doesn't even waste their time, that they put Jamal Williams on the bench and give Aaron Jones the opportunity that he needs.
His first 2 seasons in the league, Aaron Jones has averaged 5.5 yards per carry over the course of 214 carries. And this season, 26 receptions compared to only 9 before, so a little bit extra work there, 7.9 yards per reception. I think Aaron Jones becomes an absolute must-own, close to being running back 1, basically, if the Packers add another wide receiver to give them another weapon. I think right now they're a little short on weapons. I don't truly trust all those wide receiver 2s that they have, and they have a lot of people who could fill in at this point. Randall Cobb probably isn't going to be back. At this point, I don't trust all of that. So if they can add another weapon to really take away from Aaron Jones so the defenses don't key on him, I think he's in for a big year if he stays healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the deciding factor. All right, last one I got here. Going back to the wide receiver position, somebody who was a huge surprise for a lot of people, Tyler Lockett of the Seattle Seahawks, whose last year his ADP was 131. He was somebody taken there at the back half of the draft as a bench stash. The injuries to Doug Baldwin really caused a benefit for Tyler Lockett. His current ADP is up to 71 now. He was really their wide receiver 1 in Seattle last year. And from a fantasy perspective, I think that we think he had a better season than he did because he had a lot of touchdowns. He had 10 touchdowns this season, only ended up with 57 receptions, though, which is somewhat surprising. It seemed like he was a lot more involved than 57 receptions. He still was just shy of 1,000 yards. But what worries me about Tyler Lockett is if Doug Baldwin comes back this year and he is healthy, am I going all aboard on the Doug Baldwin bandwagon again? I'm going to start pricing tickets, but I'm not buying one for the bandwagon yet. I think that Tyler Lockett kind of falls back into that role, and you and I have mentioned it before. We don't buy touchdown production because it's not guaranteed. And had he gone out there and only had 3 or 4 touchdowns, kind of like his average, we're not really talking about Tyler Lockett as much. So I'm getting a little bit worried about Tyler Lockett still. As of right now, things could change, obviously, here in the next few months. But even though he's jumped 50 spots, I don't know if I'm rushing out there to grab Tyler Lockett somewhere around the 6th, 7th round.
Yeah, and with Tyler Lockett, I got this question on Twitter a few times because in a couple of mock drafts I took Tyler Lockett, took him as my wide receiver 3. I was lucky enough to get him as my wide receiver 3, and I got a lot of questions about that. Is he going to regress? Is he really going to play that well? What's going to happen? Even if Doug Baldwin comes back, I still think there's more than enough room for both of them. Like in one game, I mean, this was against Kansas City too, so not a great defense. Lockett had 99 receiving yards, Baldwin had 126. So I think there is more than enough opportunity. The question is, do they switch back to being more of a running team? Do they really try to take the focus off of Doug Baldwin, Tyler Lockett, and Russell Wilson and try to look more at Chris Carson and Rashad Penny? Or do they continue to let Russell Wilson air it out? Because statistically speaking, this was one of Russell Wilson's better seasons. So even though maybe it didn't feel like it, he played extremely well this season. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm still willing to buy him as a wide receiver 3, probably not any higher than that. I think he has the upside as a wide receiver 2, and I still think that he has a lot of touchdown upside. But like you said, it's tough to buy touchdowns.
And there's going to be so many other options out there in that similar range. I would rather start to look at my tight end quarterback position at that ADP than I would go with a Tyler Lockett as my number 3.
Well, I never like to take quarterbacks too early.
Well, that's like the 7th or 8th round, Kyle.
Still too early for me.
You know what? It's not all about you, though. This was my opinion.
Okay, noted. The next time you give opinion, I'm not allowed to.
Yeah, do not comment on my opinion. Your opinion of my opinion means nothing, in my opinion.
Oh, okay. All right. So Robert Woods is my next candidate here for risers. And last season finished at wide receiver 42 for his ADP, already up to wide receiver 18 this year. And I've defended him quite a bit on Twitter. Currently, Brandon Cooks is still going in front of him, which I don't know. Woods was the better receiver last year. So I would much rather at this point, honestly, myself, have Robert Woods. I think he's a lot safer. 130 targets last year, 86 receptions, both career highs. 1,200 receiving yards, 6 touchdowns, also career highs. And another interesting stat, 19 rushes for 157 yards. He averaged 8.3 yards on the ground.
Well, all right. He's a wide receiver / running back.
So anyway, one thing I wanted to bring up, because a lot of people say, well, with Robert Woods, the Cooper Kupp injury, that's what helped. Okay, so Robert Woods was drafted as the wide receiver 42 prior to the 2018 season, and the narrative has been Cooper Kupp was out to reinforce his wide receiver 11 finish being incorrect or not something he can repeat. But before the Cooper Kupp injury, he was the wide receiver 14 in PPR, and after he was wide receiver 9. So I think with that small, that's not really that big of a jump for me. That's, 20, 30, 40 points maybe, which, could be a lot. But in the same sense, wide receiver 14, when all 3 of those guys were on the field at the same time, I'll buy him as my wide receiver 18 every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Regardless of the production that he had with Kupp in or out, he's still at worst a wide receiver 2. So I don't want to sit and nitpick and argue about a few points here or there. He is the most consistent receiver, in my opinion, on the Los Angeles Rams, a team that's going to rely on the pass more weeks than not. And I think Brandon Cooks may be the more big play threat, but I think Robert Woods is the safety valve. Cooper Kupp may take away some red zone looks when he's healthy, but outside of that, I agree. I think Robert Woods may be the safest option for the Los Angeles Rams.
Absolutely.
Abso-freaking-lutely, Kyle.
Make sure, we were talking some ADP tonight, so make sure you head out to Fantasy Football Calculator, one of our newest partners here, part of Headliner Nation. We're going to be using their stuff all season long, so really excited to be looking at that.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you guys have somebody that you're questioning, there's a lot of other guys. Listen, we could have put like 15 names in here, and then the video gets to be like 85 minutes long and nobody wants to watch it. Trying to keep them shorter. We hear you guys out there. We see that you like those shorter, quick-hitting videos, and that's what we're going to be doing here. We really appreciate your support. Make sure you're following both myself and Kyle on Twitter. Find Kyle at krich1532. You can find me at Fantasy Headliners, FNTSY Headliners. Kyle's raising the roof over there because he feels like it. No other reason. It's kind of a dad move. But you're a dad, so it works.
Did you say dad or?
Oh no. That was recorded. All right, well, before this gets absolutely out of control, we're going to head out of here for the day. We really appreciate your guys' support, though. Make sure you're checking out the other videos. We have a lot of content out there, both fantasy baseball, fantasy football related. And before Kyle dabs again, we're going to say goodbye, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks. Have a good one.